All right, welcome back, guys. This is Off the Edge, and we are coming to you live on Bleacher Report. We're really excited to be here. We love being
Woo!
here. But furthermore, we love talking ball and we love talking NFL football. And we got a fun little show for you. We're going to go through our 5 under the radar trades that we can do to help contenders this year. And we're going to try to make it realistic here, but also under the radar. So these might not be names that you're hearing constantly. This might not be a name the NFL.com media is throwing up there. Those articles and whatnot. We kind of, dug in a little bit. See what I did there.
I like that.
We dug in a little bit and we found, first off, the Patriots, Cam,
Yeah.
going after, they were going after, a decent season this year. They thought they were going to be good. It hasn't been good. Okay. And so, I think right off the rip, we're going to start with the New England Patriots because it just feels like turmoil is afoot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Is Bill Belichick going to be there for much longer? I'm not sure. Mac Jones, he keeps getting benched each week. What the heck is going on?
that's the thing, man. I don't feel great about the Patriots right now. I didn't feel great coming into the season. I know some people thought they'd be better than they currently are. And I don't know, after the Eagles game, I even thought that it was like, okay, but it is only week 1. And week 1, you don't know how things are going to go, and stranger things have happened, and any given Sunday. But Cam, this team is not very good. And so I have them sending safety Kyle Duggar, who's in a contract year. The Patriots do not pay players really. They let them go, and we
Tom
know that.
Brady, Chandler Jones. Yeah, we get that.
Yeah, so they let them go, and so I expect Kyle Duggar out of Lenore Ryan, which sucks, by the way, because when you find a gem out of a college like Lenore Ryan,
Yeah.
you don't want to watch him go, but
Right.
he's probably going to get paid. The Eagles were calling around about Jeremy Chin. I think this would be a great spot. I think this could happen. It's not being talked about, but I think Duggar offers you the ability in the box because he can be a box safety. I think he's got underrated ball skills and he's got great athleticism. He's played in 381 snaps this year, Cam. And again, the Patriots rarely re-sign players, so I think this makes a lot of sense. Great tackler. He's 27 in a contract year. The Eagles are trying to win now, and we already know with Blankenship in the back and among other guys, Justin Evans and so forth. We know the Eagles are interested in upgrading. That is something that's gone around. I know you saw it. Jeremy Chin. Well, now sounds like Jeremy Chin is banged up. He might be going on the IR. And so, you talk about the next option, Budda Baker, currently on IR. And he's another one who we've talked about. So let's mix it up and let's go with Kyle Duggar here.
Yeah, no, I like that, Jake. And like you mentioned, Budda Baker, he was on my list. He was a little bit over the radar, right? A guy like Budda Baker who was making noise this past season. We talk about it a lot of times, that Hard Knocks episode where he's, talking to the team. We got to do better. We got to move on. And so, he got re-signed to the Cardinals, but I do think he's someone that can be moved around a little bit and would do extremely well, at the Eagles. That would be extremely awesome. But I had Budda Baker locked in there. Then you mentioned Kyle Duggar, Jake. I remember during the pandemic, right? He got drafted in 2020. There wasn't many players from schools like Lenore Ryan getting picked, right? You're seeing some of these athletes that were playing in the bowl games, were playing in the playoffs. Those are the teams that were getting picked because scouts couldn't travel. Scouts had to watch the television, watch the tape, and kind of figure out who they wanted. And so Kyle Duggar stood out on the tape, Jake. The Patriots are known for getting athletes from smaller schools like Kyle Duggar and making them to these all-star athletes and all-star players. And so, I mean, Jake, the guy's 6'2", 222, right, playing safety. Come on, fam. I was that same weight when I was playing. He's a little bit taller than me. So you think about a Mark Barron, right? I played with Mark Barron at the Rams. I can see that for him, him stepping in, covering some of those tight ends like Travis Kelce and whatnot. So Kyle Duggar to the Eagles, backing up Justin Evans. I played with Justin Evans at the Eagles, and that Eagles team is a different team, from last year. So they need more pieces like Kyle Duggar to make things stronger. But over the radar trade for me would be Budda Baker.
Yes, that's somebody that's out there. I think people, obviously, and I don't want to spoil too much, but I see in the comments section, will the Chargers make a trade? Stay tuned. Ravens make any moves? Stay tuned. So next up here, Cam, we got an interesting pick. So everyone and their mother wants to mock guys like Brian Burns, Chase Young, Josh Uche. We already did that. And the guys like Rashawn Gary to the Rams. But the Rams are a contender. First off, let me just start off by saying that they are a contender. Anytime you have a Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Sean McVay combination with Aaron Donald, you're a contender. Yeah. But the way, they've gotten play out of Akello Witherspoon, and, you see what Kyron Williams did.
Akello's number one right now. Number one corner in the league right now.
Number one corner in the league right now. It's crazy. But, I think the Rams need to go out and get another pass rusher. Byron Young just won Rookie of the Week at edge defender. And Michael Hoyt is coming off his best game. O'Shawn Mathis is exciting. We've talked about the overall upside there. But they need to go out and get a rusher. And I think it goes beyond just getting a rusher, because if they were going to get somebody, and from what I've been told is they're not trying to move their first round pick. So this is going to be an under the radar guy. Maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't. But the first thing I would say is if they just want a cheap option that doesn't really offer consistency or a well-rounded game and coverage in the run game, and is just going to be a straight up, you're getting another rusher in the room, Arden Key from the Jaguars. But I think the Jaguars are pretty damn good right now. So I don't think necessarily they'd be interested in trading him away. So then you look at the Broncos. Broncos are bad right now. We've heard they could blow up the team. And while I believe at the end of the day, this guy might not be available because he's that good, Nick Bonito makes a lot of sense for the Rams. And the reason I say that is because this guy, who I think could end up being, deemed as untouchable by the Broncos in this potential fire sale, I'm not sure they would turn down decently high picks at this juncture. You need to recover. You traded all those picks away for Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. You need to start replenishing that. And so while Benito is great, my concern is that his contract doesn't align with when the Broncos will be back. So you're probably going to have to pay him big time. And who knows how that's going to work. So the way I see it, Cam, former 2022 second round pick out of Oklahoma, was one of the top 10 edge defenders in that draft. Good size, well-rounded. The Rams need a guy that can drop in coverage, can stop the run, and can rush the passer. And this is somebody, to me, that makes a lot of sense. We've heard marquee names like Burns, Young, and Uche. But, I think this is somebody that really under the radar, probably hasn't been talked about in rumors yet, but would make them better immediately.
Yep, I agree, Jake. The Rams do need that. I'm glad you mentioned it. Nick Bonito, 6'3", 240. I think he's going to be able to provide some more force for that Rams defense. You mentioned, Byron Young stepping up as rookie of the week this week for the Rams. I think adding to that, Aaron Donald, I think, needs a little bit more help. That'll be nice to see. We talk about Akello Witherspoon holding it down on the back end there for the Rams. And so having someone to apply a little bit more pressure under the radar now, this under the radar trades, this is now over the radar. And Nick Bonito would be great for that. And it's crazy to think, Jake, these teams that aren't doing too well are looking to really trade guys off. And so we go through this list. These are the teams that, aren't necessarily doing as well. And some of these players need to be offloaded so they can get on a team that can win some football games. Jake, for me, I'm going to talk about an over radar trade. For me, Carl Lawson. Right, if he goes to the Ram. I know we talk about Brian Burns as well. That'd be absolute. Jake, you've talked about Brian Burns since the beginning of the year. You wanted him since the beginning of the year. We'll see if that happens. But also Carl Lawson would be another person over the radar. That'd be really cool for the Rams. Another big name athlete, I think, for Aaron Donald to spark some energy into that Rams defense. So the Jets, Jake, they have a lot of guys on defense. So come on and share them over to the Rams and see what that looks like. But when it comes to the Broncos and the Rams, Nick Bonito coming over to the Rams, that would be a nice under the radar trade there for Ramos, for the Rams nation.
Yeah, one thing to point out, Nick Bonito was in that Ejiro Evero defense last year. That was one of the best in the league and miraculously went down the tubes. Wonder what happened there. But he has that familiarity factor with Evero, who has that familiarity with the Rams defense and Raheem Morse and so forth. So it would be a scheme fit as well. And I think that's an important distinction there. Number 3 here, we're going to stick with the Hollywood teams. We're going to stick with the Chargers here. Okay. The Cardinals are, I want to give them more credit than we like, because we didn't expect them to be this competitive, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I got to say, our cover guy, I don't know if you saw our thumbnail, I put him in there. Marquise Hollywood Brown to the Chargers. I think this makes a lot of sense. We talked about it pre-draft. Okay. I liked Quentin Johnston, but I felt like it was a no-brainer. We predicted, we did our own mock draft on Off the Edge, and I predicted that Zay Flowers would be a Charger. I thought it was a perfect fit. You diversify the receiver room because you have Keenan Allen, who's not really the bursty guy, more of a guy that can just, he gets off the line of scrimmage, creates a lot of separation quicker than fast. You got Mike Williams before he got hurt, field stretcher, big body, right? Then in the slot, you would have Zay Flowers, who's kind of that shiftier, fast, explosive gadget, but also just he's a great route runner. And he's more than a gadget player, but you can use him in every single way. And then, of course, you'd have Josh Palmer as your 4th. That's pretty good, receiver group. Well, they got Quentin Johnston. He hasn't looked the best so far. And so to combat that, look, you got one of the best arm talents in the sport right now in Justin Herbert. This team is 2-3. I understand some people don't want to say they're a contender. They have far too much talent to be 2-3 right now, Cam. And they are a contender. They do have to show something against the Chiefs, though, this week. Otherwise, it's going to get downhill pretty quickly. But Mike Williams out for the year. Johnston, the first-round rookie, doesn't seem to be ready to take up the mantle quite yet. I am excited about his long-term, but he's not there yet. I like the idea. You can go up and you can get Hollywood Brown. And right now, the Cardinals, I don't know why they'd want to keep him. I think they got him for Kyler, but I don't think Kyler has a future here in Arizona. So with that said, I think if he were to go to a place with Justin Herbert, it gives him a field stretcher, add some, dynamic ability to the offense all over the field. And now you have a guy that can win at every level, but can also win over the top. And you have Justin Herbert's arm that can throw over the top. And now all of a sudden, you have a guy in Hollywood Brown who's not wasting the prime years of his career playing for a team that's currently not playing for anything. And instead, he has a chance to be a part of something in LA and try and save Brandon Staley's job. So I'll say this right now, Cam. I think the Cardinals are going to sell off pieces. We're going to see it soon. They've already done it. They traded, Josh Jones. They got rid of, what's his face, Majai Sanders. They traded away Isaiah Simmons. So clearly they have already gone about doing this. I know Marquise Brown was one of the new uniform models. Doesn't matter. So was Kyler Murray. Doesn't matter. They're not part of the future. I think Brown was entirely for Kyler. And so I think the Chargers not only are a fit, but I think both sides are a fit in this trade. And at the end of the day, I think this is a no-brainer for the Chargers. You go out, you get your guy that can stretch the field. You get your guy that can have that dynamism, if you will, for the offense. And you just go from there.
I like that, Jake. We talk about that move for the Chargers. I think that's important. And one thing I also want to caveat for the folks here in this chat, the trade deadline, October 31st. So we pretty much have a week before that, that deadline at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's important. Last year, there were 10 trades that hit that deadline, some big names, Christian McCaffrey, Chase Claypool, Calvin Ridley. So I know we're talking about under the radar trades, Jake, here. You just mentioned Hollywood Brown going to the Chargers. I'm going to stick with the Chargers, but I'm going to make it a little spicy here. I'm going to say this, a little over the radar trade within the division. I'm going to say the Broncos have a trade to the Chargers. It's in the division. I know it's a little bit spicy, but I'm going to call Jerry Jeudy going to the Chargers. Now, reason why I say this is you talked about that athletic, that shifty type of receiver. Well, Jerry Jeudy, I think it was Jerry Jeudy and Steve Smith had their recent falling out right on national television, which I don't know if I agreed with, right? It was a lot of back and forth with that one. But what I will say is Jerry Jeudy with the Broncos, I have a feeling that's not going to be much longer. And so why not go to, in the division, see how that works out a little bit. You talk about Mike Will getting hurt, Jake. That was a major blow to the Chargers. With their tight end situation as well. It's decent, but it could get better. And so adding an extra wide receiver, I know Gerald Everett is tight end there, but adding an extra wide receiver to bolster that passing game with Herbert is important, right? You see Herbert on these SoFi commercials all the time here in LA. Go ahead and feed this man, give him more receivers so he can score some more touchdowns. Austin Eckler's back in the mix, which is really cool to see. And hey, could that be a trade? I'm not sure, but I would like to see Jerry Jeudy make a transition, or Hollywood Brown, right? Hollywood Brown would be our under the radar trade. Jerry Jeudy would be the over-the-radar trade, and I think that would be spicy, Jake. I'm not sure if they would trade him to a division opponent like that, right, within your division, but you never know. It's any given Sunday. Football changes frequently and constantly. Like I said last year on the same time, there were many blockbuster trades, so we'll see, Jake, but I got Jerry Jeudy going to the Chargers from the Broncos.
So the weird thing is I can't even say I can't see that because – I mean, look at what the Lions did. The Lions traded away TJ Hawkinson when, they were this close to being a contender last year. They traded away TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings. So I can't say that would never happen because it does happen. And it happens in the draft more than ever. I mean, the Rams have traded with the Niners. I mean, we've seen it. Next up is it's the closest to a name that you've probably heard mentioned. The Vikings sending edge defender Danielle Hunter to the Ravens. Now, here's the thing with the Ravens. Okay, first off, actually, let's talk about Minnesota and why this makes sense for them. The Vikings might be mailing it in. Okay, I'm not saying they're tanking, but right now at this point in time, Marcus Davenport, talented pass rusher they got in free agency, headed to IR. You have Justin Jefferson out for the foreseeable future with a hamstring. Okay, we're already hearing, could Kirk Cousins leave? He's not going to leave, and he's not going to waive his no-trade clause. And it was explained because basically Kirk Cousins doesn't want to waive his no-trade clause and then have to go and learn a whole new offense and have a lot of, that's a lot of pressure on you right into your contract year. And what happens if he fails somewhere? Now all of a sudden it looks bad on him. Maybe he doesn't get paid as much as he should. So he wants to stay away from that, and I don't blame him. But the Ravens have one guy right now off the edge in Jadeveon Clowney, who's making noise, but they need another. There's just not a lot of production going on there. Right now, the Ravens are getting most of their pressure from interior guys like Michael Pierce and Justin Madubuike. I think a legit contender, here, the Ravens, they have a really good roster, Cam, but they need another guy. I think Danielle Hunter would be absolutely spooky in Baltimore right around Halloween. He could also lead to a long-term deal. He is an expiring contract. So that's the reason why, potentially a Vikings team would move on from him. But I think it makes a lot of sense because the Ravens, they're getting really good production out of Jadeveon Clowney, and Clowney can play the run. Danielle Hunter can play the run. And now you have a good balance here where you don't have to worry about no one is a liability on the edge, setting that edge. They both can do it, but they both can get home. And, right now, the sacks are coming for Danielle Hunter as well. So you bring that to Baltimore, and who knows, they might be undefeated if they had those guys. They lost an overtime game to the Colts, and they lost to the Steelers in a game that I still can't believe they lost. So think about this. If you don't think the Ravens are a contender, they could very well be undefeated right now. They were not that far away. And so I think going out and getting an elite rusher, going out and getting a really good run defender, elite rusher, elite talent, elite athleticism will bolster your defense. And before anyone says this isn't going to happen, let me just remind you something. They traded for Roquan Smith last year and signed him before Lamar Jackson. We brought that up on our show. That was surprising. Now, Lamar's locked in. He's locked in. Go out and get Hunter and lock him in.
I like that, Jake. I like that. And we talk about the Ravens being in the hunt, Jake. I think that's big time. Think about how Lamar Jackson's playing football. I think it was against the Browns where his receivers, the ball was hitting them right in the fingertips and they were dropping it. It was kind of ridiculous. So the fact that Lamar was still able to win that football game was daggone impressive. So Lamar, like you said, he's starting to pop. He got paid, so that's really impressive. But Danielle Hunter going to the Ravens, Jake, I like that pick. That's our under the radar pick. The over the radar pick, Jake, for me would be Chase Young. Chase Young, right? He's already in that location. I know he's with the Washington Commanders. Go over to Baltimore. That drive, Jake, shouldn't be too far, maybe an hour and a half, right? He can be reconnected with his Ohio State buddy, Terry McLaurin, and those guys can go wreak some havoc. But when you think about just the Washington Commanders, Chase Young, we thought about this at the beginning of the year, right? This is the over the radar. We know it's going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see what things look like come October 31st. Things are getting spooky out there in the DMV, but I do think he goes to the Ravens and bolsters that team there. And the Ravens become a playoff contender. They become what we thought that they were going to be. I know last year Lamar got hurt, and that was brutal. But this year we want to see these guys do pretty well. That's just great football. And like I said, with Chase Young going to the Ravens, I think that'll be a really good move. And Danielle Hunter, Jake, right? We talk about that Vikings defense. Brandon Flores, we got Harrison on the back end. They're going to need another defender to replace Danielle Hunter if they trade him and trying to get someone there that can make some things happen. Hey, maybe they get Brian Burns, from the Panthers. Who knows how things go, right? Things get spooky, but I would like to see Chase Young go to the Ravens as our over the radar pick there.
Yeah, he's he's one of the best rushers in the league right now. Pressures, he's right up there among the best. Chase Young is his issue. I think, and this is the interesting thing and why Chase Young could really get traded in this case, because I think teams are really going to be interested in the fact that he has that injury history, so they can't really justify trading away a first round pick, extensive injury history. So, I mean, Washington already kind of told you, man, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. And I know now you could have a change of thought, but I don't know. Now I didn't pick a commander yet, so I think it's time to pick a commander. Why don't we go with Antonio Gibson, the running back? Get some running backs in here. Everyone's talking about Derrick Henry. That's the over the radar. Sorry, I stole your thunder there. But the Buccaneers, okay, they're a contender right now. Whether you like it or not, that division, they're the best team in that division right now, currently. Things can change. Saints losing last night, losing those games to the AFC makes it easier for NFC teams, but that's some of the separation that you're starting to see is like that game at home, you didn't protect your home, and so I think looking at the Buccaneers, you have the Commanders who it's not even that they have to be in sell now mode, Cam. My thing for this trade is that they just use Gibson as a pass catcher. They don't even use him as a running back. And I don't think they use him enough. And this is a former 1,000-yard rusher. So I think Antonio Gibson, contract year, Buccaneers need some health. They need some life in that running back room. I know your guy, Sean Tucker's there, but Rashad White is the one that's most concerning to me because he's getting the majority of the workload and he has a 3.3 yards per carry rate. Just hasn't looked very good, hasn't gotten going. And so, I look at the Commanders here as a good trade partner because, pretty much Gibson's only used in the passing game and we know that he can run the ball. So I think the Buccaneers could use him not only in the passing game, but also the run game, like a better version of Rashad White right now. They clearly are going to move on. It's this contract year. The Commanders are not bringing him back. They, drafted Chris Rodriguez Jr., who we talked about out of Kentucky, day 3 pick. They're very high on him. Okay. So I think there's a chance. And Eric Bieniemy, I think, is the one that really spoke highly of him in training camp. I think there's a chance Chris Rodriguez Jr. starts to get ramped up in the carries and stuff moving forward because you got to protect, your guy there and Brian Robinson. You can't overwork him. So I think this is going to move more towards C-Rod, and I think they're going to trade Antonio Gibson. And I think the Buccaneers make a lot of sense because they need to get that running game going. They're getting good play out of Baker. They got great weapons and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. This Buccaneers team is kind of having a last ride, a last hurrah before they have to kind of figure a lot of things out. I mean, we've talked about off air. We talked about during the off season, what happens with Devin White, what happens with Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield.
Levante David.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield, are you going to keep him? Because you're going to have to figure it out because he's going to want to leave if you're not going to keep him. You know, if you draft somebody, he probably believes he's a starter right now and he's played well. I just think this is the most realistic option because I think everyone wants to say Derrick Henry. I still don't think the Titans realize they're not like true contenders. And so I don't think that they would trade Henry. I don't.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jake. I agree with you. And right, DeAndre Hopkins, will they trade him? Well, I'm gonna go on the over the radar picks with DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry. Right, let's just entertain this a little bit, Jake. Derrick Henry going to the Buccaneers would be absolutely awesome, right? You think about when it comes to locations, right? To retire, what does that look like? Derrick Henry's been in Tennessee for a while. I'm not sure if he's in the back end of his career, Jake. So what does that look like? Tom Brady went there to retire. Had a great time, bought some teams after that. So Derrick Henry might be thinking the same thing. What does this look like, right? Leonard Fournette was at the Buccaneers, found some success as a big back, right? With that offensive line, they know how to block for some of these power running backs. So I think it could be a great fit for him, Jake. As a former Buccaneer, I'm a little selfish. Would love to see Derrick Henry in those creamsicle uniforms, right? Giving that stiff arm to folks in that Raymond James Stadium. So I'm a little biased there, Jake. On the other hand, right, we go to DeAndre Hopkins, sticking with the Titans because I do think they have to sell. I would like to see D-Hop go to the Colts, Jake. I think the Colts would be a really cool location for him. I think when it comes to the Colts, I think they're up and coming. I think they're switching things around a little bit. Jonathan Taylor signed again, right? So the run game is going to be popping. I know they have a great receiver there already, but hey, let's go ahead and add a little bit more flavor to that, Jake. I think that would be really spicy. What are your thoughts there on D-Hop going to the Colts?
Well, I think you're now obsessed with intra-division trades, Cam. That's what I think.
I mean, we said make it spicy, right?
Yeah.
The show she said make it spicy. I want to make it a little spicy here.
So one thing I want to say is the Colts are going to figure out what they are very soon. Anthony Richardson out for the season, really unfortunate. We saw some great things out of him. I mean, I like Gardner Minshew. I think they can win with him. I don't think they can win a Super Bowl with him, but I think they can win enough games with him to potentially get into the playoffs. And so I think the question now with the Colts is you paid Jonathan Taylor, okay? But Zach Moss is having one of the best seasons of any running back in the league. And mind you, he missed a game. So what do you do now? Because, you're a good team. You can use Zach Moss, but he's in a contract year. So it's like, do you try and get something for him? Do you trade him to, do you trade him back to Buffalo? Like, what do you do? I mean, I don't know. I think that
send him to the Bucks.
see, that's interesting. I mean, the Buccaneers would be an option, the Lions. And I do want to throw something out there, kind of go off the cuff here. Let's see if we can get 5 trades, right? 5 trades here that the audience who's watching the comments section, chat, we're counting on you here. What are 5 trades that you think are most likely to happen? And Cam and I will talk about as we wrap up the show.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Also, poll.
I see Marquise Brown to the Browns. Okay.
Ooh. Okay.
I kind of like that.
I mean, like right now, I caution Browns fans. I covered the Jets last year. Elijah Moore is not that good. He's just not. And so I felt like the Jets stole him, or the Jets stole the pick from him. And I think the Browns, Amari Cooper is him. We know that. If you went out and got another running mate for Amari Cooper, that'd be something. DeForest Buckner to the Seahawks. I don't think the Colts would do that. But if they did do that, Seattle's already a great run defense as it is. You add some pass rush to them interior as well. That would be something.
Burns to the Niners. That's not fair, dude. That's so
I know. Cancel the season at that point. Good Lord.
Yeah.
How many more pass rushers do you guys need?
And then Danielle Hunter to the Raiders. I keep seeing that the Raiders want to get more pass rushers, I guess, to fill in for that void for Chandler Jones, but they just drafted, so similar to we talk about the Chargers, them drafting a receiver, now going back after it's like, okay, does that make sense? But if the people you drafted don't pan out, then it might make sense, right? To go get another receiver, to go get another defensive end, because it's like, hey, this is not working out. And Jake, can we see a drafted player get traded, right? I don't know.
I mean, we've seen it before. But it's, I don't know, it's weird, man. It's like my question is, will we see a trade similar to like Stephon Diggs for the pick that became Justin Jefferson? That would be interesting. Josh Jacobs to the Ravens is interesting. I don't know if they would do that, but that would be. The problem is, what are the Raiders? You know what I mean? Like Josh McDaniels, is he willing to mail it in this year? Is it over? I think Josh McDaniels is a big reason why this Raiders team people don't buy into, even though aren't they 3-3?
They're doing all
They're
right.
like in it, man. They're like in it, and we're like, yeah, they're gonna get rid of Max Crosby and this guy. And the sad thing is, it's because of McDaniels. No one buys into this team long term because they're like, man, they're 3-3 now, but this team's about to implode. Like
I like the Kyle Pitts, Jake. Foolish Portillo said Kyle Pitts. Now, what does that look like? Kyle Pitts getting traded. I know he's a premium guy, but is the Falcons the right location for him? What does that look like? Can he get a quarter? You know,
he's starting to get used a little bit more in the passing game. I have noticed that.
Good.
I think they listen to us because we were calling this out for a while now. Like, why do you even have him if you're not going to use him?
Right. Yeah.
Zach Moss for the Ravens.
Zach Moss. I mean, like you said, Zach's having a great season, right? His value's going up, stock's going up. Why not slide to the Ravens and see how that goes? That's good.
Jalen Johnson of the Cowboys is fascinating. Deron Bland is playing as well as any corner in the league. Stephon Gilmore is as well. And then Trayvon Diggs is out. So it's like, do you really need Jalen? No, but Jalen like long term, because Gilmore, he's getting older, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Deron Bland can, fill right in as the slot corner. And then you get Trayvon Diggs back and you got a young Jalen Johnson. I don't know, man. That sounds pretty spooky if you ask me.
And Jake, before we close up here, I know we're talking about the trade deadline coming up October 31st, but let's maybe talk about end of season, right? Some moves that could happen just for a little bit here. I do think we talk about the Diggs brother. I do think Stephon Diggs will not be a Bill after the season. I think he might request a trade. I don't think he's going to be a Bill after the season. They're going to make the playoffs, Jake. I understand that, but I have a feeling they're going to lose in the playoffs, and I think he's going to request a trade. I have a feeling. I think he's going to go to the Cowboys. I mean, he's going to want to be with his brother.
Say, what happens if there's a trade? Stephon Diggs straight up for CeeDee Lamb.
Ooh.
Because the way the Cowboys are playing right now, they better start. They targeted CeeDee Lamb more this past week, but I know he was getting a little annoyed with the lack of targets. I don't know, man. I could see Dak kind of not like pushing guys out because of his personality and then the person he is, because I've only heard great things about Dak as a person, but he tends to get into these moments where you're like, man, what are you doing? Why are you targeting Michael Gallup constantly when the dude keeps dropping the ball and not throwing to Brandon Cooks? That's another one. Brandon Cooks in Buffalo. That would have to come with like a pick. Like you couldn't trade Brandon Cooks straight up for Stephon Diggs, but you could go Brandon Cooks in a second for Diggs or something like that. So that's interesting. Stephon Diggs is, he played at Maryland, as I see the comment there. That would be interesting if you went to Baltimore.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Him going home. I actually had a chance to train with Stephon when I was training for the NFL during our off season in Maryland. He was him and his brother. So that could be interesting as well, Jake. There's so many great options here. I feel like we could talk all day about this. But to be honest, Jake, just reflection, I think the biggest trade, the biggest blockbuster trade, or the best trade that I think can happen from what we talked about today here recently, I think I might be a little bit biased here, but Antonio Gibson to the Buccaneers or Derrick Henry to the Buccaneers, I think they need that, right? The running game is minimal. They need that to increase, and even the Rams too, Jake. Even the Rams, I know our guy Kyron is hurt, right, and Ronnie Rivers is hurt, but Cam Akers left. We need some more support, brother. We need some more support.
You know what? You know what trade I like that I don't think anybody's mentioned? I like Jalen Johnson but I like him to the Steelers.
Mm.
Patrick Peterson is a short-term deal, getting older, had an amazing season last year, has played really poorly this year. Then you got Levi Wallace, who Steelers fans want out of the league. Like they're gunning for his head. This is an organization, for the most part, that the fans are able to somewhat run. They can run guys out of town, except for Matt Canada. But I'll say this right now: Jalen Johnson, and then you got Joey Porter Jr. long term with T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith and Minka Fitzpatrick. And man, you're cooking with grease, my guy. Like that. That's what I think, because I think Jalen Johnson's a perfect fit. He's a physical guy, and really they need to be playing Joey Porter Jr. because I thought I was pretty impressed with like the few, reps that he got this year so far. So I don't know. That's how I see it. I think that would be a cool move. Another cool move, I would say. Kind of looking at, receivers and so forth. And you look at the teams, bottom tier teams, and you're like, all right, who could be traded? And, we talk about the Arizona Cardinals and, so forth, but it would be very, very intriguing. Okay. If we saw a trade where, I don't know, say, and I don't think they would do this. Let me just be very clear. But what if we saw like a superstar get traded? Okay. Like a legit superstar, globally recognized Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying they would do it, but like, what would that even bring in? Where do you even send him? And like, at that point, you'd just be doing a full rebuild. But I actually do like the Vikings, and I think they're going to be fine. Just maybe in the short term, not so much. But and I don't foresee it. But like, if Justin Jefferson got pissed off enough and tried to force his way out, like Stephon Diggs, well, first off, we owe Stephon Diggs an apology, because that's 2 star receivers that the Vikings have pushed out. One, but 2, if that were to happen, it's just so bizarre to think about, like, what is the price there? Because he's going to have to be paid a ton of money. Yeah. And there's no way to know what the price of that would be. So I'm not saying you ever trade a guy like Justin Jefferson, but man, would it be interesting?
Blockbuster trade. Who would need him? What would that look like? A whole lot of money, a whole lot of picks, but it could change the trajectory of a team at the end of the day, right? He's number one. Cooper Kupp is up there as well. Puka Nacua is up there as well. But Justin Jefferson is one of the best athletes in the league, best receivers that play the game. And, I think once he retires, like, he will be said in top 20, top 25 receivers, because he's crushing it, bro.
What if the Dolphins got him?
Yeah, you just, the Eagles got Julio Jones recently, man. It's just like, dude, the rich get richer. And man, if the Dolphins got a guy like Justin Jefferson, it'd just be unfair.
Yeah, imagine just him, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You got Tua, you got the running backs.
Can't do that. You can't do that. The NFL script said you can't do that.
Yeah, no. No, you can't do that. They're not getting rid of him. I just, it's something to think about at the end. But hey, guys, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Appreciate your, constant participation. Made the show a little bit more fun this week. So appreciate you guys. We'll be back soon. But in case you missed it, we sent Kyle Duggar to the Eagles, Nick Bonito to the Rams, Hollywood Brown to the Chargers. The Vikings sent Daniil Hunter to the Ravens, and then the 5th trade that we had under the radar, Antonio Gibson to the Buccaneers, which might be the most likely one. So keep an eye out for that. But I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Cameron Lynch. You can follow me at JK Bogan. You can follow him at Cameron Lynch 50. And you can also follow us right here on the Bleacher Report app. So be sure to do that for more content. Never miss another live stream. We'll see you guys on the flip. Everyone enjoy your NFL Sunday and stay safe, guys. Later, folks.
Peace.